Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how I translate anime step by step with
blah blah blah. You weebs are so stupid because you don't understand Japanese, and here are all the reasons why I'm better than you.
Oh, you again.
Hi, me again. Thought you got rid of me after that Retsuko video, eh? Hey, don't cut me off. Oh, that's very mature.
Shaberu means to talk, and if you add a na to the end of it, it becomes the command, don't talk.
Well, gomenne, but I'm back. This channel needs better weeb representation, and I'm here to fix that. Desu yo?
But I am a weeb.
Oh, you know what I mean. All your videos are the same. Weeb complains about some cringe translation. You tell them they're wrong and stupid and explain laboriously in 30 minutes what all the Japanese words really mean and how when you translate it, it magically turns into something completely different. Then they tell you they disagree, then you tell them it's just impossible for them to understand until they learn Japanese for themselves, which is going to take several years, so just believe me.
Actually, that's a pretty fair point. I think I have been a little uncharitable by summing up my entire case as, you'll never understand my point of view until you understand Japanese, which is going to take forever, so just believe me. That is kind of a cop-out.
Oh,
Dang, I was kind of counting on you acting all arrogant and smug so I could shove an old tweet in your face.
let's not shove any old tweets in any faces.
Anyway, I have been thinking about it, and I think I have found a way to explain what translating Japanese is like to someone who doesn't understand Japanese. In fact, the only language I'm going to use to explain my case is English.
Nani? How can you explain translation with just English? Like this.
Chapter 1.
Oh crap, I wandered into a pretentious video essay.
What understanding Japanese media in Japanese feels like.
So, what are we looking at here exactly? What does a wedding flower arrangement on a table have to do with translating anime?
How did you know that was a wedding flower arrangement on a table?
I used my eyes and saw it.
Exactly. Now, what about the people watching this video who are either visually impaired or have it on in the background? Are they able to see the wedding flower arrangement on the table?
Well, no, but I'm sure they know by now that there is a wedding flower arrangement on the table because we've been talking about it.
Because we've been using words, English words, to describe what our eyes have processed. The moment you said the words wedding flower arrangement on a table, you translated the visual on the screen into English words that could be understood by people not watching the screen.
So you're saying I just translated English into English?
No, I'm saying you just translating something that you understood into English. The thing you understood was not originally in English.
Huh?
The same concept applies to translating Japanese to English. When I hear a sentence in Japanese, I understand it in Japanese much the same way that you understood that there was a wedding flower arrangement on the table without anyone saying those English words. When I hear the Japanese sentence, テーブルの上に結婚式用のフラワーアレンジメントが置いてあります。My brain pictures a wedding flower arrangement on a table. Then I can express this image in my brain using English words and say, there's a wedding flower arrangement on the table.
But I thought you take each Japanese word and translate it into English. Isn't that what translation is?
Sometimes, but usually no. When I explain how I translate on this channel, I break down sentences word by word to show how grammar works and to prove that the translation is correct. But once you understand Japanese, there's no need to do that anymore. You just understand it, much in the same way that you understand there's a wedding flower arrangement on that table just by looking at it. So, if I asked you to translate what you see on the screen as a sentence, what would you say?
There's a wedding flower arrangement on the table?
And that's what it feels like to translate Japanese to English. You saw something with your eyes, you understood what it was you were seeing, and then you expressed this using English words.
Oh, so that's it? Are we done?
Chapter 2.
Of course we're not done.
How client guidelines change our translations.
Now, what if I told you there was a character limit of 50 for your translation? Your initial translation of, there's a wedding flower arrangement on the table, was one character too long.
Well, I guess I'd have to get rid of one of the words, so maybe there's a flower.
Stop right there.
Why? What's wrong?
I forgot to tell you earlier, but the client says they want flower to always be translated as blossom.
That's Weird. I'd rather use flower. It makes more sense. Can't I just do that?
No, you can't. As translators, we're often given a glossary of terms that we have to adhere to. Terms that were either established earlier in the franchise by another translator, or terms that the client, in all their non-native English-speaking wisdom, insists that we use in the product.
Okay. That's annoying, but I guess I can work with that. I translate this image as, there's a blossom arrangement on the table.
How dare you? That's a mistranslation.
What? I used blossom.
But you left out wedding. That's marriage erasure, and you're clearly pushing a deviant anti-family agenda with your woke translation.
Whoa! Bruh, you didn't have to make this political.
I didn't make this political. You did when you mistranslated that by leaving out that it was a wedding blossom arrangement.
But you made me do that when you said I couldn't use more than 50 characters. And since you won't let me use flower instead of blossom, I had to get rid of one of the other words to make it fit.
Surely there's a word for wedding with fewer characters.
Oh. Yeah, I guess I could say there's a bridal blossom arrangement on the table. That's 50 characters. Okay, fixed it.
How dare you? That's a mistranslation. Why do you assume they're bridal just because they're for a wedding? That's heteronormative queer erasure, and you're clearly pushing a homophobic agenda with your alt-right translation.
Dude, you're overreacting. I clearly didn't mean that. Why do you automatically assume I have bad intentions?
Gee, I don't know. That's a really good question.
Chapter 3. What words mean and how we use them.
So, as we demonstrated just then, there are a number of different ways to translate something, not all of which are within a translator's control. Sometimes external factors like glossaries of terms set by the client, word count limitations, and what our editors do to our work will affect our translations. Now that I've established the basic framework of this discussion, I'd like to give you something a little more complicated to translate. Using one sentence, how would you translate that?
A woman did a dance move, smiled, and then ate a potato chip.
There's a word for that dance move, though.
Oh, well, I don't know that word.
This is what it feels like when I come upon a word in a Japanese sentence that I don't understand. Just like with you in the dance move, I'm usually not entirely clueless as to what the mystery word is. From context and kanji, my brain can usually fill in the missing gaps and give me a basic understanding of the word, or at the very least, how that unknown word functions in the sentence I'm supposed to translate. Or you could, just look up the word in the dictionary. And I do, but I'm just illustrating how even before I look up a word I don't know, I still usually have a pretty decent understanding of the sentence, even without a clear dictionary definition of it.
Yeah, I guess that kind of does make sense. It's like when I'm reading a book in English and I run into a word I don't know, but I still kind of know what it means.
Exactly. Now I'll be your dictionary and tell you that that dance move I performed in that clip was a pirouette. That's technically a borrowed French word, but
you said you'd only use English words to make your point.
I know, just please bear with me here. Anyway, now that you know that the dance move is called a pirouette, how would you translate that sentence?
A woman did a pirouette, smiled, and then ate a potato chip.
Okay, good start. You're using pirouette as a noun here, though, which makes the sentence a bit clunky. Can you rephrase did a pirouette as a verb?
Oh, I guess. Pirouetted?
Good. This illustrates something else that we do as translators. Sometimes to tighten up the prose or fulfill word count requirements, we convert nouns to verbs or nouns to adjectives or whatever makes the sentence flow better. This principle can really be applied to creative writing in general.
But shouldn't you keep the sentence structure as consistent with the Japanese as possible?
No, you really shouldn't. Structures that work well in one language won't work well in another necessarily. Just like certain scenes that work well in books don't work well in movies unless they're tweaked a little. By making these tweaks, we make the story more accessible to an audience, not less. Back to the pirouette example, we have to consider the context of the story or character as a whole and what function the pirouette is playing in the story. Is the pirouette a visual manifestation of the woman's joy? Or is she literally a happy ballerina eating a potato chip? Is she in ballet class while this is happening? What's most important, the woman's happy emotions, the fact that she's a dancer, or the fact that she's eating a potato chip?
None of it is important. You just showed me a random clip to make a point, or to show off that you can dance ballet.
Both, actually. But now I'm asking you to consider the bigger picture and how that little clip I showed might apply to a bigger story, and how you might translate it differently depending on the context or the story as a whole. It's really important to take these things into consideration as an entertainment translator, so that even if a word or two gets lost in translation, at least the overall feeling or intentions of the scene or line of dialogue are preserved.
Chapter 4. Subtext.
Now, we're going to pretend that this little pirouette video clip is part of a bigger story. I'm going to give you some information about the scene as a whole or that character and ask you to translate your sentence accordingly.
Okay.
Okay, here's some subtext. Sarah wants to be a ballerina so badly, but pirouettes have been eluding her. Now, how do you translate that scene?
Sarah pirouetted, smiled, then ate a potato chip.
Your approach is still too literal. I want you to have a more literary approach.
But why? It's not like translation is creative writing or anything.
No, translation is absolutely 100% creative writing. That's basically like the whole thesis of this pretentious video essay.
But you're asking me to change what I'm seeing. A translation should not change the original work.
There's a big difference between changing something and taking the author's original intent into account. Sure, if you were to translate this clip as, "There's a bridal blossom arrangement on the table," that would be incorrect. But I'm not asking you to change it. I'm giving you the author's intention, what the author wanted to communicate with this clip, and what sort of emotions she wanted to invoke in her audience. Sarah wants to be a ballerina so badly, but pirouettes have been eluding her. How does this information change how you view the scene? How does it make you feel? How can you word your translation to reflect this? Please, just humor me.
Okay, well, I guess if Sarah has accomplished something in the scene that she's been struggling with, it's a triumphant moment. She smiles not out of happiness, but out of pride? And I guess the potato chip could be her reward. Okay, yeah. Sarah nailed her pirouette and proudly ate a potato chip. Is that kind of what you want?
That was a wonderful translation. Yes, you kept the meaning intact. The events that happen in your translation haven't changed. There's still a woman pirouetting, smiling, and eating a potato chip. But now there's so much more character to it, and now we, as an audience, can empathize with this character a little.
So, I done good?
Yes, you're a great translator. Okay, here's a new prompt. Forget that last thing I said. Now, the scene is actually through the POV of another character, Erica. Erica has struggled with self-esteem and she's not happy with her body. She's watching TV and this commercial comes on of a ballerina doing a pirouette, smiling, and eating a potato chip. Now, how do you translate that?
Well, if this is Erica's POV and we're supposed to empathize with Erica, I guess seeing the ballerina eating a potato chip after being so graceful would really hurt Erica's feelings. So, the thin ballerina smirked and scarfed down a potato chip.
Wow, I am so proud of you. You just made me resent that ballerina a little bit, which was the author's intention.
And I didn't change what happened in the video clip either.
No, you didn't.
I figured the pirouette part wasn't so important. It didn't matter what ballet move she was doing, it just established that she's a ballerina. I used smirked instead of smiled since smirk can have mocking connotations.
And using scarfed down instead of the more generic ate for the potato chip was also a great choice.
Well, yeah, I figured the audience would resent the ballerina more if I used a cruder word for eat.
Exactly. And in doing so, you help the audience relate to Erica.
Yeah. Wow. Do you have to consider this sort of thing all the time when you translate?
Yes, we do. Author intention, characters, relationships, culture, the target audience. And we have to do all of this while adhering to character limitations, style guides, and unrealistic deadlines.
And you have to be fluent in Japanese.
Yeah, that too. I understand how this can be hard to understand. It's actually the reason I learned Japanese in the first place. I wanted to really understand anime and manga in Japanese for myself. And once I achieved that, Once I was finally able to read and understand manga and anime in Japanese, to be able to cry in response to the Fruits Basket manga without translating it in Japanese in my head, that's what made me want to become a translator. I wanted to help fans who didn't have the time, patience, or resources to learn Japanese like I did to be able to have the same experience with anime and manga that I do.
Wow. I didn't realize. But that means your translations are biased.
Nani?
If you want fans to experience anime the way you experience it, that means you want us all to see anime through the eyes of a middle-aged socialist femoid.
Are we really doing this?
Really clever, you baka.
Pretending to love Fruits Basket to show how alike we are. But I do love Fruits Basket.
Gomenne, but I know you're just a fraud who wants to control the anime industry and take it away from fans.
But I am fans.
Doubt.
Come on, it's my birthday.
Sayonara, fake weeb.
Well, happy birthday to me, I guess.